I stood in the spacious living room of the Coleman mansion, my hand tightly gripping my daughter Lily's, as Susan Coleman's gaze swept over us like a spotlight. Susan, my wife Emily's sister, always had a way of making me feel small, as if I were an uninvited guest in her family's glamorous world. The mansion sat on the outskirts of Brunswick, Maine, with oak-paneled walls and stained glass windows overlooking a meticulously trimmed garden. The maple leaves outside had turned a vibrant red, signaling the arrival of a chilly autumn. But the real chill came from Susan's voice, as she turned to Lily, my 8-year-old daughter, with a stiff smile. "Lily, you need to apologize to Lucas for provoking him," Susan said, her tone even but carrying the weight of a command. Lucas, the 10-year-old son of Susan and Robert, Emily's brother, stood a few steps away, his eyes glinting with a smugness I couldn't ignore. Lily bowed her head, her light brown hair falling to hide her face, but I could still feel her small hand squeezing mine tightly.
Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video.
I, Andrew Foster, 45 years old, an IT project manager working from home, was used to keeping the peace. In the 10 years I'd been married to Emily, I'd learned to bow my head to the Colemans, owners of a chain of luxury hotels in Brunswick, who saw themselves as the town's centerpiece. They always made me feel like an outsider, despite my efforts to fit in for Emily and Lily's sake. But today, when my eyes fell on the bruise on Lily's arm, a dark red mark shaped like fingers, something inside me broke. I knelt down, gently pulling up her sleeve to see it more clearly. The bruise wasn't random. It told a story Lily hadn't yet dared to share. "Lily, what happened?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She shook her head, her big round eyes fixed on the floor, as if afraid of something. I looked up, catching Emily's gaze as she stood beside Susan. My wife, with her blonde hair tied up high in a forced smile, shook her head slightly, as if signaling me not to make a big deal out of it. "Andrew, don't overreact. Kids play, sometimes a bit rough," Emily said, her voice soft but laced with pressure, as if she were trying to protect her family's reputation more than our daughter. I felt a simmering anger flare up, but I held it back. I was used to yielding, used to letting the Colemans' sharp words pass like the cold autumn wind. But this time, seeing the fear in Lily's eyes, I couldn't stay silent any longer. "Rough?" I repeated, my voice low but sharp. "This bruise didn't come from a game, Emily." I pointed to Lily's arm, where the handprint was still clear. Susan cut in, her voice smooth as silk but cold as steel. "Andrew, you really should teach Lily how to behave properly. Lucas is an energetic boy. If Lily hadn't provoked him, none of this would have happened." Susan crossed her arms, the smile on her lips failing to hide her disdain. Robert, standing behind his wife, merely nodded, as if agreeing that the fault lay with my 8-year-old daughter. I wanted to shout, to demand why they made my child apologize to the one who hurt her. But I looked at Lily, saw her shoulders trembling slightly, and knew this wasn't the place to argue. "Let's go home, Lily," I said, holding her hand tighter. I led her out of the room, leaving behind the Colemans' probing stares. Emily followed, but she said nothing, only sighed, as if I were making things more complicated than necessary. In the car, on the way home, Lily sat silently, staring out the window. The roads of Brunswick stretched out, lined with vibrant red maple trees, but I couldn't enjoy their beauty. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to control the anger surging in my chest. "Lily, do you want to tell Daddy what happened?" I asked, gently, not wanting to pressure her. "Lucas pushed me," Lily whispered, her voice so soft I had to strain to hear. "Aunt Susan said I had to apologize, or I'd be a troublemaker." When we got back to our small home, cozy but humble compared to the Coleman mansion, Emily finally spoke. "Andrew, you can't keep suspecting my family like this. Lucas is just a kid. You're blowing a childish fight out of proportion." Her voice trembled, but I heard the familiar defensiveness, the loyalty to the Colemans I'd seen for 10 years. "A fight doesn't leave handprints on our daughter's arm, Emily," I replied, my voice harder than I intended. "If Lily says Lucas pushed her, I believe her, and I'm going to find out what's going on." Emily shook her head, her eyes flashing with disappointment. "You always do this, Andrew. Always think my family is the bad guy. They only want what's best for all of us." She turned away, leaving me standing in the kitchen with a strange sense of loneliness. I looked out the window, where Lily was sitting on the swing in the yard, clutching her favorite stuffed bear. I knew I could no longer back down. The bruise on Lily's arm wasn't just a mark, it was a warning I'd ignored for too long. I remembered the times Lily came back from the Colemans with vacant eyes, how she stopped playing the piano, something she used to love, after weekend visits. Lily, my 8-year-old daughter, used to be a radiant child, always humming her favorite piano melodies after school. But lately she'd grown quieter, especially after visits to the Colemans. I recalled the time Lily returned from Lucas's birthday party, Susan and Robert's son, with red eyes and disheveled hair. When I asked, she just shook her head and said, "It's nothing, Daddy." I believed her, or rather, I chose to believe to avoid trouble with Emily and her family. That evening, as Lily packed her backpack for a weekend at her grandmother's, I noticed the hesitation in her movements. She folded her clothes slowly, her small hands pausing on her favorite stuffed bear, a birthday gift she called Gray Cat. "Do I need to bring Gray Cat, Daddy?" Lily asked, her voice soft, as if searching for a reason to stay home. "You can bring it if you want, sweetheart," I replied, sitting beside her on the living room floor. "But I think Grandma would love to hear you play the piano. Have you practiced your new song?" I tried to spark a conversation, hoping to see Lily's smile again, but she only nodded, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Daddy, can I stay home this weekend?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. "I want to help you fix the bookshelf in my room." Her unexpected request made my heart clench. Lily had never refused to visit her grandmother's, where her cousins, especially Lucas, whom the Colemans always praised as an energetic boy, would be. "Don't you want to see your cousins?" I asked, keeping my voice gentle. "Lucas and everyone will be there, right?" The moment I mentioned Lucas's name, Lily's shoulders tensed, as if the name were a thorn piercing her heart. That small change, though it lasted only a second, was enough to set off an alarm in my instincts. I knelt down, looking into Lily's eyes. "Sweetheart, you can tell Daddy anything. If something happened at Aunt Susan's, just let me know." Lily bit her lip, her eyes glistening as if she might cry. But then she shook her head. "I'm not supposed to tell," Lily whispered, her voice so faint I had to strain to hear. "Aunt Susan said not to be a tattletale. She said family keeps secrets." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I wanted to hug her tightly, to shout that no one had the right to silence her, but I knew pushing would only make her withdraw further. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with Emily. The soft yellow light illuminated her face, but I saw no warmth in it. "Emily, we need to talk about Lily," I began, my voice calm but firm. "She doesn't want to go to the Colemans anymore. She's scared of Lucas, and the bruise on her arm isn't from normal play." Emily sighed, setting her coffee mug down. "Andrew, you're overreacting again. Lucas is just a 10-year-old boy. Kids fight, they roughhouse, it's normal. You can't keep thinking my family is the problem every time." Lily's upset. Her voice was sharp, carrying the familiar defensiveness I'd heard countless times. The Colemans were always right, and I, though her husband, was still an outsider. "So it's normal for Lily to be scared?" I asked, trying to keep my anger in check. "She said Susan told her not to tattle." "What does that mean?" "Emily, why does she have to keep quiet about being hurt?" Emily frowned, but instead of answering, she stood up and turned her back to me. "You're trying to tear my family apart, Andrew. You always do. If you keep this up, things will only get worse." She left the kitchen, leaving me with an empty feeling. I looked out the window, where the moonlight shone on the falling maple leaves. I'd let the Colemans define me for too long. A compliant husband, a father who didn't speak up. But now, thinking of Lily's fearful eyes, I knew I couldn't continue like that. The next morning, I called Helen Porter, Lily's homeroom teacher. She was a middle-aged woman, with a warm voice, always attentive to her students. "Foster, I've noticed Lily's been different lately," she said over the phone. "She stopped raising her hand in class, and after weekends, she's often quieter. I think you should talk to her more." Porter's words fueled the fire of my suspicions. I thanked her, promised to follow up, and noted everything in a file on my laptop. Dates, times, Lily's words, and Emily's reactions. After the call with Helen Porter, I felt a new surge of energy, as if the scattered pieces in my mind were starting to fit together. I, who once thought I could solve any problem with logic and patience, now realized that protecting my daughter required more than that. I took a photo of the bruise on Lily's arm while she was asleep, careful not to wake her. The dark red mark, shaped like fingers, was still clear, though slightly faded. I saved the photo in an encrypted folder on my computer, naming it Lily. Then the next morning, I sat down with her while Emily was out shopping. Lily was playing with her stuffed bear, gray cat, on the living room rug, her small hands clutching it like a shield. "Lily, do you remember the time at Aunt Susan's?" I asked, kneeling to meet her eyes. "When Lucas pushed you, did anyone see? You can tell Daddy, I promise you won't get in trouble." Lily bit her lip, her eyes glistening with hesitation. I waited, not pushing, knowing she needed time to feel safe. "Lucas locked me in the storage room," Lily whispered, her voice as soft as a breeze. "In the basement. He said if I screamed, he'd tell everyone I stole his toy." Her words cut into my heart like a knife. I pictured Lily, small and scared, locked in the darkness, while the Coleman family continued to laugh and talk upstairs. Aunt Susan saw me come out, but she just told me not to tattle. She said I had to learn to play with Lucas. I hugged Lily tightly, trying to hold back the tears welling up in my eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. Daddy won't let this happen again." But deep down I knew that promise required action, not just words. I wrote down every detail Lily shared, from the time and place to Susan's exact words. I knew I needed more evidence, not just to protect Lily, but to confront the Colemans, people who could easily twist the truth with their money and influence. That evening, I called Mark Reynolds, my close friend from college, who had once been a manager at one of the Coleman hotels before quitting over disagreements with Robert. Mark was one of the few people I trusted, someone who had warned me about how the Colemans controlled everything in this town. "Andrew, you're poking a hornet's nest," Mark said over the phone, his voice low but full of concern. "But if you want to know about Lucas, I can introduce you to Julia Hayes. She used to work as a server at the Coleman Hotel, and saw something similar." Julia Hayes agreed to meet me at a small cafe in downtown Brunswick, where the smell of freshly baked waffles mingled with the autumn air. She, a woman about 30 with cautious eyes, sat across from me, twirling her coffee cup, as if to stay calm. I signed a non-disclosure agreement when I left. Julia began, her voice quiet, "But I can't stay silent after hearing about your daughter. 2 years ago, during a family party at the hotel, Lucas locked a little girl, the daughter of a client, in a storage closet. She was crying when they found her, but Susan and Robert blamed her, saying she wandered in there herself and panicked." I clenched my fists under the table, trying to keep my voice steady. "What did they do afterward?" Julia shrugged, her eyes tinged with sadness. "They paid the girl's family to keep quiet. I was fired right after for reporting it to the manager. The Colemans don't like anyone exposing their secrets." Julia's words hit me like a cold gust, confirming my worst fear. Lucas wasn't just bullying Lily. He had a pattern of behavior shielded by his family. I thanked Julia, and promised to keep her identity confidential. On the drive home, I pulled over on a road covered with fallen maple leaves, trying to organize my thoughts. I knew I needed to talk to Emily, even if it might lead to another fight. But when I got home, Emily was standing in the kitchen, her eyes red as if she'd been crying. "Andrew, I don't understand why you keep digging into this," she said, her voice trembling. "Lily will be fine. Why can't you just let it go? My family isn't the monster you think they are." "Lily was locked in a dark room, Emily," I replied, my voice louder than I intended. "Lucas hurt her, and Susan told her to stay quiet. That's not kid stuff, that's bullying, and I won't let her keep suffering." Emily shook her head and walked out of the kitchen, but I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a small sign that she wasn't entirely sure about her family anymore. That night, I kept taking notes, adding Julia's account to my file. I emailed Helen Porter, asking if she could provide more details about Lily's behavior at school. I also searched for information about events at the Coleman Hotel, hoping to find more clues about covered-up incidents. Each small step made me feel closer to the truth, but pushed me further from Emily. I looked out the window, where the moonlight lit up the garden, and promised myself, no matter what it took, even if I had to face the whole world, I would protect Lily. The Colemans might think they're untouchable, but I'd show them what a father can do when his daughter is hurt. That weekend evening, I took Lily back to the Coleman mansion for a family party, though my heart was heavy. The mansion, on the outskirts of Brunswick, was surrounded by vibrant red maple trees, looking like a perfect painting, but I knew behind that facade lay dark secrets. Susan Coleman greeted us at the door, her smile as cold as ever. Robert, Emily's brother, stood beside her, holding a glass of wine, his gaze passing over me, as if I were a low-level employee in their hotel empire. Emily came with me, but she kept her distance, as if she sensed I'd caused trouble. After Lily was led to the backyard to play with her cousins, I pulled Susan and Robert aside to a corner of the living room, where luxurious rugs and walnut furniture couldn't hide the rising tension. "We need to talk about Lucas," I began, my voice low but firm. "Lily said he locked her in the storage room. He hurt her, and I want to know why no one did anything to stop it." Susan raised an eyebrow, her smile never wavering. "Andrew, you're really blowing this out of proportion. Lucas is just an energetic boy. If Lily hadn't provoked him, none of this would have happened." Her words cut like a knife, but what hurt more was when I looked at Emily. My wife lowered her head, saying nothing, as if agreeing with Susan. "Provoked?" I repeated, my voice louder than I meant. "Lily was locked in a dark room. Susan, she was scared, and I want to know why I'm being asked to make her apologize to the one who hurt her." Robert cut in, his voice deep but authoritative, as if speaking to a child. "Andrew, you need to learn to control your daughter. If Lily keeps causing trouble, of course Lucas will react. You're making a big deal out of a childish fight." He took a sip of wine, his eyes cold. "If you keep this up, we'll have to consider whether Lily should keep coming here." Robert's threat hit me like a blow. I looked at Emily, hoping she'd speak up, but she just shook her head. "Andrew, don't make things more complicated. My family just wants what's best." Her silence, her blind defense of her siblings, made my heart ache. I felt betrayed, not just by the Colemans, but by the wife I'd loved for 10 years. I left the mansion right after, holding Lily's hand tightly. In the car she sat quietly, clutching her stuffed bear, gray cat, her eyes fixed on the window where maple leaves fell sparsely. "Daddy, did I do something wrong?" Lily asked, her voice soft. Her question tore at my heart. I pulled over, turned and hugged her. "You didn't do anything wrong, Lily. Daddy promises to protect you." I kissed her forehead, but inside I knew that promise required bigger actions. Back home, Emily said nothing, just went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. The silence between us was heavy, like the air before a storm. The next morning, I contacted Natalie Carter, a lawyer Mark Reynolds had recommended. Natalie was a sharp woman, specializing in family cases, and her voice over the phone gave me a spark of hope. "Andrew, if what you're saying is true, we can ask the court to intervene," she said, "but you'll need solid evidence. Photos, statements, anything showing Lucas's bullying and the Colemans' complicity." Natalie's words brought me back to my laptop file. I added details about last night's confrontation, Robert's threat, and Emily's silence. I also reached out to Helen Porter, Lily's teacher, to ask more about her behavior at school. Porter replied via email, attaching a copy of a drawing Lily made in art class. A small girl standing in a dark room, with a boy outside the door, grinning wickedly. Above the drawing, Lily had scrawled, "Scary place." The drawing sent chills down my spine, as if Lily was trying to scream through her art what she couldn't say aloud. I printed the drawing, carefully clipping it into my file. I knew I was entering a battle, not just with the Colemans, but with my own marriage. That evening, I tried talking to Emily again, but she cut me off before I could start. "Andrew, if you take this to court, you'll destroy our family. Have you thought about that?" Her voice trembled, but I saw more anger than remorse. "I'm trying to protect Lily." "Emily," I replied, my voice calm but resolute. "If you won't stand by her, I'll do it alone." Emily turned away, leaving me in the darkened kitchen. I looked outside, where the moonlight shone on the falling maple leaves, and felt a cold clarity. The Colemans might think they held all the cards, but I wouldn't let them hurt my daughter anymore. I opened my laptop, emailed Natalie, confirming I was ready to proceed. The fight had just begun, and I wouldn't back down. One afternoon, while organizing documents to send to Natalie Carter, my lawyer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. No greeting, just a short line. Check your email. Don't ask who I am. My heart raced as I opened my inbox. An anonymous email, no subject, contained a video file with the note, Coleman security camera. I can't let them keep doing this. I downloaded the video, my hands trembling as I hit play. The footage was painfully clear. In the Coleman mansion's backyard, Lily was sitting on the grass, clutching her stuffed bear gray cat. Lucas appeared, yanking the bear from her hands, then pushing Lily to the ground. As she tried to stand, he grabbed her arm, twisting it hard, making her scream. In the corner of the frame, I saw Susan and Robert standing at the door, watching the scene without doing anything. Susan even turned away, as if she didn't want to see. The video ended with Lily's cries, while Lucas walked off with a smug smile. I had to pause, taking deep breaths to quell the rage burning in my chest. I sent the video to Natalie. Immediately. Minutes later, she called back, her voice full of excitement. Andrew, this is the evidence we need. It's clear, time-stamped, and shows both Lucas's actions and Susan and Robert's indifference. I'll prepare an emergency court petition to restrict the Colemans' access to Lily. Natalie also suggested I show Emily the video, but I hesitated. Emily had defended her family for so long. Would she face the truth? That evening, after Lily was asleep, I called Emily into the kitchen. She walked in, arms crossed, her eyes defensive. Andrew, if you're going to talk about Lucas again, I don't want to hear it, she said before I could speak. I shook my head, opened my laptop, and played the video. You need to see this, Emily. This isn't my imagination. The images appeared on the screen, and I watched Emily's face. At first, she frowned, muttering, "You must have done something to this video. Lucas couldn't do that." But when the scene of Lucas twisting Lily's arm played, with her scream, Emily fell silent. Her eyes widened, her hand covered her mouth, and I saw tears glistening. When the video ended, she turned away, her voice trembling. "Where did you get this? How do I know it's real?" "Someone sent it anonymously," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "But you can clearly see Susan and Robert standing there, doing nothing. They let Lucas hurt her, Emily, and they made Lily apologize." Emily shook her head, but this time, I saw doubt in her eyes, no longer the resolute defensiveness. "I need time to think," she whispered. Then left the kitchen, leaving me with the still glowing laptop screen. I received an email from Helen Porter, with a detailed report on Lily's behavior at school. She wrote that Lily had stopped playing the piano during music class, often sat alone during recess, and the scary place drawing wasn't the only one. She attached another of Lily's drawings, a small girl surrounded by dark shadows, with the words, "No one helps." I felt my heart clench, blaming myself for not realizing sooner. Emily still avoided talking to me, but I noticed she quietly observed Lily more, as if searching for answers in our daughter's behavior. Once, as I was tucking Lily into bed, she stepped into the room, standing at the door, and I saw the anguish in her eyes. "Andrew, I don't know what to do," she whispered. "If that video is real, I was wrong. But they're my family." That small confession was the first sign that Emily was wavering. But I knew she wasn't fully ready to stand by Lily yet. I returned to my file, adding the video and Miss Porter's report to the list of evidence. I also noted my conversation with Emily, though it pained me to do so. The Colemans began applying pressure through calls from mutual friends, urging me to keep the peace for Lily's sake. But I no longer cared about peace. I sent a final email to Natalie, confirming I wanted to proceed with the lawsuit. As moonlight streamed through the window, casting light on the fallen maple leaves in the garden, I felt a cold clarity. The Colemans might think they're untouchable, but I would show them how strong a father protecting his daughter could be. The day of the trial arrived, and I felt an unprecedented tension, as if the whole world was weighing on my shoulders. I had spent the past days preparing with Natalie Carter, my lawyer, to confront the Colemans, my wife's family. who held power and prestige in Brunswick, Maine. The trial took place in a courthouse in Portland, Maine, far from Brunswick to avoid the Coleman's influence. The courtroom was small but solemn, with dark wooden walls and rows of seats filled with people, not just the Coleman family, but also a few local reporters, likely tipped off by rumors of the case. I sat beside Natalie, clenching my hands to stay calm, while Emily sat behind, her gaze flickering between me and her family. Susan and Robert Coleman appeared impeccable. Susan in an elegant dress, Robert in an expensive suit, flanked by their lawyer, William Tate, known for defending Brunswick's elite. Lucas was there too, in a small suit, but his glance at me with a smirk made me shudder. Judge Margaret Lawson, a woman with sharp eyes and a steady voice, opened the trial. Natalie stood, presenting our case with sharp confidence. Your Honor, we have clear evidence that Lucas Coleman bullied and harmed Lily Foster, while his parents, Susan and Robert Coleman, not only failed to intervene but forced the victim to apologize. We request a no-contact order between Lucas and Lily, along with supervised visitation for the Colemans. Natalie began by playing the security video, as images of Lucas pushing Lily down and twisting her arm appeared on the screen. Lily's cries echoed through the courtroom. I saw Emily bow her head, hand covering her mouth, tears glistening. Susan and Robert sat upright, but I noticed Susan's hand clenching, as if trying to maintain composure. William Tate stood, objecting immediately. Your Honor, this video could have been edited. Moreover, it lacks context. Children often play roughly, and Mrs. Coleman had just stepped in when the incident occurred. Judge Lawson raised her glasses, looking directly at Tate. Mr. Tate, are you saying it's normal for an adult to witness one child harming another and do nothing? Her voice was sharp, making Tate back down. Natalie continued, calling Miss Helen Porter as a witness. Porter described the change in Lily's behavior, from a piano-loving girl to a withdrawn child, often drawing dark pictures about a scary place. She presented two of Lily's drawings, silencing the courtroom. One showed a small girl surrounded by darkness, with a boy outside grinning wickedly. Next was Dr. Rebecca Stone, a child psychologist who worked with Lily. She spoke with a calm but compelling voice. Lily Foster shows clear signs of anxiety related to interactions with her cousin Lucas and the Coleman family. She described multiple bullying incidents, including being locked in a storage room, and more concerning is that adults told her to stay silent and apologize. This created a toxic environment, making her feel unsafe. William Tate tried to dismiss it. Your Honor, these statements rely on the account of an 8-year-old, possibly coached by her parents. But Dr. Stone responded immediately, her voice firm. I have 15 years of experience assessing children in traumatic situations. Lily's account is consistent, detailed, and accompanied by emotional responses that cannot be faked at her age. Judge Lawson nodded, taking notes, and signaled for Natalie to proceed. Julia Hayes, a former Coleman employee, took the witness stand, her eyes full of anxiety but resolute. She recounted an incident 2 years ago when Lucas locked a girl in a storage closet at the Coleman Hotel. When the girl was found, Mrs. Susan blamed her, saying she wandered in there. The victim's family was paid to stay quiet, and I was fired right after reporting it. Julia's testimony was like a bomb, shaking the Colemans' confidence. Susan whispered something to Tate, her eyes icy. The turning point came when Natalie called a representative of the Bennett family, who had been paid off by the Colemans to cover up another of Lucas's bullying incidents. Mrs. Laura Bennett, the victim's mother, took the stand, her voice trembling. We took the money because we thought it was best for our daughter. But I regret it every day. When I heard about Lily Foster's case, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. She looked directly at me, her eyes full of empathy. I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner. When Susan took the stand, she maintained her composure, but I saw tension in every gesture. Your Honor, I love my grandchildren. That video was just a misunderstood moment. Lily had been teasing Lucas all day, and I only wanted to teach her that her actions have consequences. Judge Lawson interrupted, her voice icy. So you believe a child being hurt is a natural consequence of teasing? How do you explain standing by and doing nothing? Susan faltered, losing her confidence for the first time. Before she could respond, Emily stood, her voice choked. Your Honor, may I speak? The courtroom fell silent. Emily looked at me, then at Lily, sitting beside a social worker. I was wrong not to believe my daughter. I let my family cloud the truth. Lily didn't deserve to be treated like this, and I'm sorry. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and I felt a small spark of hope amid the storm of emotions. Judge Lawson called a recess before delivering her ruling. When we returned, she looked directly at the Colemans. The evidence shows a pattern of bullying by Lucas Coleman, enabled by his parents. The court orders a no-contact restriction between Lucas and Lily Foster. Susan and Robert Coleman may only have supervised visitation after attending parenting classes. Lily's well-being will be the top priority. The ruling was like a cool breeze, easing some of the pressure in my heart. As we left the courtroom, I held Lily's hand, feeling her small fingers grip mine tightly. Emily walked beside us, silent but with a changed look in her eyes, no longer defensive but remorseful. The Colemans left in silence, but I knew their veil of secrecy had collapsed. My hand tightly held Lily's, my 8-year-old daughter, who now walked with brighter eyes, as if a burden had been lifted. Emily walked beside us, silent but no longer distant. Her apology in court, though belated, was a small ray of hope in our fractured marriage. But I knew this journey wasn't over. It had only shifted to a new phase, where we had to learn to heal. Back in Brunswick, I sensed a change in the air. The Colemans, with their hotel chain once the pride of the town, began facing a boycott. News of the trial spread quickly, thanks to a local newspaper article headlined, "Powerful Brunswick family accused of covering up child bullying." Though it didn't name Lily, the article detailed the security video and witness testimonies, shaking the Coleman's perfect image. Customers began canceling reservations, and some former employees took to social media, sharing stories of how the Colemans used money to cover up mistakes. I didn't feel vindictive, only relieved that the truth was coming to light. Lily began regaining her confidence. I enrolled her in a piano class at the Brunswick Community Center, where she'd once refused to go out of fear. One afternoon, I watched her practice, her small fingers gliding over the keys, playing a joyful melody she composed herself. "Daddy, this song is about finding light," Lily said, her smile radiant like autumn sunshine. I hugged her, my heart swelling with pride. Miss Helen Porter, Lily's teacher, reported that she was raising her hand in class again, and playing piano during music time. One day, she emailed me, attaching a notice that Lily had won first place in an elementary school piano competition, with her original song titled, "Fearless." I printed the award certificate, and hung it on the living room wall, where Lily could see it every day. Emily, meanwhile, started therapy with a psychologist. She admitted that her blind loyalty to her family had blinded her to Lily's pain. One evening, she sat down with me and Lily, her voice trembling. "Lily, I'm sorry for not listening to you. I promised to do better." Lily hugged her mom, and though I knew she still needed time to heal, that moment was a big step forward. Emily and I also agreed to attend marriage counseling, though I wasn't sure if we could ever return to how things were. Each session was a small battle, where Emily faced how her family had manipulated her, and I struggled to forgive without forgetting the wounds. One evening, as Lily and I were composing a new piano piece on the old piano in the living room, Emily walked in, carrying a tray of freshly baked cookies. "I think we should start a new tradition," she said, setting the tray down. "Friday nights, cookies and piano." "Okay?" Lily beamed, running to hug her mom. Seeing that, I felt a spark of hope. Our marriage still had cracks, but we were trying to rebuild, one day at a time. A year after Judge Margaret Lawson's ruling, autumn returned to Brunswick, Maine, bringing cool breezes and maple trees blazing red like fire. Lily, now 9, was thriving. She not only won piano awards, but also began teaching younger kids in the community class, sharing her love for music. Once, she brought home a new song about a girl finding light in the darkness. When I asked about its inspiration, Lily smiled. "It's about me, Daddy, and you and Mommy too." Her words choked me up. She wasn't just healing, she was turning pain into something beautiful. The story of Andrew Foster and his fight to protect his daughter Lily from Lucas Coleman's bullying, and the Colemans enabling reflects many social issues in the U.S. today, especially the culture of silence around abuse in powerful families, and the pressure to keep peace in small communities. In Brunswick, Maine, the story shows how families like the Colemans, with influence from their hotel business, can use money and reputation to cover up wrongdoing. Like Lucas locking Lily in a storage room or leaving bruises on her arm. This mirrors realities in America, where powerful organizations or families sometimes abuse their authority to protect their own, leaving victims like Lily feeling isolated and unheard. Emily's initial defense of her family, as Lily's mother, also reflects societal pressure to maintain family loyalty, even when it hurts those closest to us. The key lesson from this story is the importance of listening to and believing children when they share their pain. Andrew overcame his self-doubt, using the security video, and Miss Helen Porter's testimony to expose the truth, emphasizing that parents must prioritize their children above all relationships, even with in-laws. In American culture, where small communities like Brunswick often value unity, speaking out against abuse requires courage, as Andrew showed through his viral anonymous blog on Medium. The advice is trust your instincts, document evidence like Andrew did with his laptop and bruise photos, and seek community support, like from Mark Reynolds or Natalie Carter, to protect the vulnerable. Lily's healing, through her piano and the song Fearless, reminds us that children need space to express themselves, and adults must create a safe environment for them to do so. If my story of protecting Lily touched you, please hit the subscribe button to follow more stories of courage and truth. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.